Rob Anderson, founder of Reform Clark County, and one of the largest groups in Clark County that's trying to bring about reforms to return, your government, your agencies back to the people. And so this week I'm sitting down with Councilor Michelle Belkot, and we'll be talking a little bit about 2025, looking back and looking ahead to 2026, and who knows, maybe some breaking news might just kind of happen. But welcome to the very first official episode of ReformCast, where we'll be, looking at the happenings of Clark County. We'll take a deeper look sometimes in things that need a little more attention, and we'll also sit down with movers and shakers and talk to them, like Councilor Michelle Belkot. Welcome.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thankful for U.S. Digital. They've opened up their studio here, and want to just kind of look back. I was thinking, maybe we should talk about 2025. I mean, not a lot happened in 2025.
No, nothing at all. Nothing.
No.
Quiet.
It was quiet. It was supposed to be a pretty quiet year from my perspective. I was like, okay, 2025, it's going to be the year of the charter. Nothing but the charter. I'm just going to be focused on the charter. That didn't quite happen. Like, there was definitely a lot of things that came up that just had to. For example, so 2025, January, normally January is a pretty quiet year. Things like rules and procedures and just, stuff that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. But something very interesting right out of the chute. Will Fuentes, joined by Sue Marshall, decided that they wanted to impose their views on Clark County by removing the invocation and removing, actually, thanks to you, kind of your conversation, it found out that he wanted to remove the Pledge of Allegiance. So what happened there? I know it was a while. It was a year ago now. Can you believe that?
No, I can't believe how fast. It actually was fast. It was painful, but fast at the same time. So after initially we began with all our board and committee assignments, which for those that aren't familiar with the council, the first week when we return after the Christmas holiday, we sit down and have a meeting and discuss all our board and committee assignments. And for the most part, it's pretty uneventful. And most of the time we choose boards or committees that align with our professional background or things that we're interested in, we want to learn more about. So we went through and we did that with the new counselors, Councilor Fuentes and Councilor Little, who were newly elected. And then Councilor Young and myself and Chair Marshall, we primarily kept most of the boards and committees that we were on. And the other thing is also Sue Marshall was elected as the chair, and Glenn Young was elected as the vice chair.
And that was her first. So that's when she first became chair, right?
Yes.
It was a year ago. It feels like 10 years. I mean,
I
it
know,
passed.
it does.
But so she becomes chair. You're going over the rules and procedures, and then all of a sudden, Will Fuentes just makes this motion out of nowhere, saying, "Hey, invocation prayer. I think we should get rid of it."
Yes, I was shocked. Actually, that was the meeting following our board and committee assignments. I was very shocked. You could see the look on my face on camera and the gasps in the audience. And it was seconded by Sue Marshall. She was interested in supporting Councilor Fuentes in his initiative to not only take away the pledge, but the invocation, which is the prayer that kicks each county council meeting off.
Right, yeah. And I love the fact that then you quickly just brought up, because he mentioned about God, I think it was, that he was uncomfortable about mixing politics with God or whatever. And so you said, well, you brought up the pledge and said, well, what about the Pledge of Allegiance? That mentions God. And what did he say?
You know what? I actually can't remember what he did say specifically.
Yeah, he said something like, well, we should remove that too.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh,
I
I
mean,
can
it
never
was,
remember.
yeah,
I think it's because I was in shell shock,
yeah,
but I did say to him, last I checked, we're all Americans here.
yeah, you did.
Yeah. And if you look over the dais in the county council, it says, "In God we trust."
Yeah, yeah, it's covered up with the screen and technology,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of emblematic of how technology covers up faith in religions.
Yeah.
But not to get too deep in the weeds there. But yeah, it was pretty wild, and myself, others drew attention to it and said, "Hey, Houston, we've got a problem here. Like this is a big thing, and it isn't necessarily. In fact, what people need to understand is that." The invocation happens before the meeting actually starts officially, but it's also, an important historical part of what was, what we're built on, what we believe as a country. As you pointed out, our country is built on that, and so even if you don't believe in God, I think it's an important thing to recognize that because it's I think it's also making a declaration that there's something bigger here going on, and this is more than just me and my political aspirations or things like that. And so that happened. There was a big brouhaha, and by the way, I think it's important to note that Will Fuentes brought up also wanting to remove the pledge, but Sue Marshall didn't step in at that point and say, whoa, 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 whoa. In fact, I don't think any of them did. If I remember so,
Yeah.
besides you being aghast and kind of like taken back, everyone else was kind of like, oh, yeah, that's not such a bad idea. And maybe we should do a land acknowledgement instead of, I mean, and so it just seemed like, oh my gosh, like, we're going to lose prayer, invocation, which, by the way, many faiths, many I mean, it's not a pigeonhole like Christianity or whatever. There's
Absolutely.
definitely a wide spread of faiths represented there, but the Pledge of Allegiance, and so
Yeah.
it was pretty wild.
Not only as a person of faith, which I am, and many people know that. I mean, even in my voters pamphlet write up, it says, I mean, you can tell. I mean, I mentioned my church and my involvement with my church, but as a military member, I served 25 years to my country in the military, and I was very offended on that front as well. Not only as a Christian, but as an American, as a military member who, I defend the United States of America against, terrorists. And, one of the things that was always an honor for me when I became an officer, because I initially was enlisted, was swearing in enlisted and, talking about that we are Americans and that we support and defend the United States of America. So I was personally offended in many ways, and I ended up having a lot of constituents email me afterwards and said, it's even on our money. In
Right.
God we trust. I
Right.
mean, some people might not be of faith, but it's something that represents them being an American if
Yeah.
they're not faithful.
Well, it's a historical aspect of it as well, and so I think that's quite honestly, I think what some like Will Fuentes and others want to do, kind of more on the Marxist kind of thought process of, hey, we need to tear it all down.
Yeah.
It's all bad. Let's tear it all down. And that's the course that we're on, in Washington, and now Clark County. I mean, that was almost like the introduction, even though it's
Yeah.
been brewing and, we have all the indications that was front and center right out in the open. And then so we go from there. Fortunately, we defended it thanks to you, thanks to a lot of people showing up and saying, hey, no, we want to keep the invocation. We definitely want to keep the Pledge of Allegiance. That was like a no-brainer, to the point that even Sue Marshall, when they went to the final decision, all of them scurried away from that one. That was, except Sue Marshall and Will Fuentes did stick to wanting to remove the
Yes, they
invocation
did.
at the end.
Yep.
So they lost, we won, and then we went into February and thinking, oh, okay, it's going to be all quiet now, right? And then February, and then March with the whole C-Tran situation. So just to kind of give people a background on this a little bit, that, really in November, Mayor Ann of Vancouver had been starting to kind of plot her course to get CTRAN back in a situation where they could fund O&M, operation and maintenance, which, if you can somehow, in fact, Mayor Ann called this the poison pill, and that if you could take away operation and maintenance, you could kill it. They could build it, they could put it there, but that would kill it. You knew that, and so Mayor Ann began her plotting in February, and with Sue Marshall's help, and then in March, it looked like you were going to vote the deciding vote that was going to, as Mayor Ann called it, the poison pill, that you were going to kill light rail. I mean, the votes were there. You were going to be that deciding vote. And then March 11th, what happened there March 11th, and then we'll talk about what happened.
Well, I'll just briefly go back to February. I amended the agenda to revisit the previous vote in, I believe it was in December. Yes, it was in November.
I think November.
November,
Yep.
That's right. I was actually not present at that particular meeting because I was out of town for work. But when I returned the following month, and the entire CTRAN board was aghast at the extremely expensive operations and maintenance budget for Oregon TriMet light rail. We found out that it would be an annual $2 million expense, which was insane. And that wasn't concrete. It could be absolutely more. They weren't absolutely sure. So after we ended up getting a briefing about that in February, I amended the agenda for reconsideration to vote against that language, that we would not be supporting the IBR, the Interstate Replacement Project, for those who are not familiar. We would not be supporting that element of the IBR construction. We would not be considering light rail as a part of that. And so we voted against that and were successful. And then, lo and behold, in March, my council voted to remove me from the CTRAN board and the board of directors. And that had never been done ever before. In the history of the Clark County Council, no councilor or commissioner has been voted off or removed from any board or committee. It's not in our bylaws. It's not in our rules and procedures. It's never existed.
Yeah.
That's not how we work.
Yeah, they basically kind of decided. It was very clear from my perspective what happened. So March 11th, CTRAN meeting, Mayor Ann kind of feels out everyone's vote, and they confirm that, they're in trouble because Michelle Belkot is going to kill the O&M funding, or actually just take it off the table, make it very, very difficult. And so who hops into high gear? Sue Marshall, who's supposed to, she's tried to play both sides of this when she's talked about that. Oh, well, I'm not necessarily for, light rail. I just think we want to be in a better negotiating or be able to talk or something like that kind of. But yet it was Sue Marshall that jumped in and tabled the vote, made a motion to table because they saw, this vote's not going to go our way, which, by the way, is not according to Robert's Rules of Orders. You can't just table a vote because you don't like the outcome of the vote that's going to be coming. You only table a vote because of, deficiencies in the motion or some other kind of emergencies type of situation. But she does it anyways. No one calls her on it. Mayor Ann seconds it. Boom, that's tabled. It's shelved. What's interesting is then I have evidence showing from our court cases, your court case, my court case, discovery, shows that Sue Marshall went into high gear and began reaching out to counselors. In fact, that night she reached out to Matt Little. She emailed the video link to Glenn Young to make sure that he saw it before the council time meeting, the next meeting, and in her email said, hey, call me if you have questions. So there's clear indications, and then from your removal, that there was really no discussion. So, you would think, hey, if they haven't prepared this, if there's no, coordination, then this bombshell drops. Hey, we should remove Michelle Belkot. You would think there'd be quite a few discussions of like going, well, let's talk about that. No, only Glenn Young kind of offered some mumble tank, conversation, and then boom, it was voted on. In fact, so much so that the Skamania detective that looked into all this pointed that out and said this is an indication of coordination, that they had coordinated ahead of time. Now, they have denied it in court in declarations, but there's definitely evidence there from a text message, from email, from lack of discussion, that there was coordination. They voted, they removed you, and they also installed Will Fuentes. That was a poor excuse for a drum roll.
Yeah.
So I don't want to have a snare kit here.
Yeah.
Excuse me, hold on. But he was replaced, which is a Vancouver person. Mayor Ann endorsed him, gave him $1,000 in his campaign. And so, yeah.
Endorsed Matt Little, too, I might add.
Yeah, endorsed Matt Little. And so then they removed you, and it was illegal. It was in violation of OPMA on several levels, and that's not just me talking. The Skamania detective agreed and said that there was OPMA violations. They didn't give notice. There was no public comment. It wasn't on the agenda. I mean, and this wasn't just a small mistake, and state law is pretty clear in OPMA that that people have to, they have to be notified. They have to be given opportunity to give input for these decisions, but that didn't happen, and off to the races we went.
Yep.
It was
Yeah.
it was crazy, and
Crazy.
and then it went pretty wild. I filed a lawsuit. I know that you were trying to figure out your legal options. I jumped in, filed a lawsuit. You filed a lawsuit that's now in federal court. Maybe it'd be good to give just a quick. How's that going? Where's that stand right now?
So currently, it's in federal court up in Seattle, and it is. I'm currently just awaiting one way or another to see what the judge is going to do. And actually, last month, the council attempted to dismiss the Skamania County criminal investigation as evidence with my case. And the judge said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not dismissing it. It is going to be a part of the case.
Oh, so they were trying to get rid of it, obviously.
Yep.
And your attorney made briefings and whatever, and the judge said, nope, we're keeping it. Interesting. So what are we just waiting for a decision then on that?
Yes, and I actually want to just touch back on that. One of the reasons why their attorneys, so the council, they are getting representation, and we as taxpayers, including myself, are paying for their public defense. I am paying for my own. One of the things that their attorney, Pacifica Law, said in their defense with dismissing the criminal investigation was the length of time that it took for the Skamania County detective to release that information. Well, one of the reasons why that was because they did not show up for their investigation appointments. I know that at least 2 counselors, I don't know which ones, said that they would meet up with the Skamania County investigator, which Skamania County paid for that investigator to travel to Clark County, and then they no-showed. So he attempted in many different occasions, because I read the report myself, to interview them, and they all refused. So that was not the case with me. I complied. I paid for my attorney to sit in on the criminal investigation interview, and I complied. I did what I was supposed to do, but that is a big reason why the investigation took so long, was because they were either responsive, no-show. I mean, those were the primary reasons why.
Yeah, that kind of blew my mind because I had the same thing going into the preliminary hearing, and they tried to make that argument as well that, hey, too much time is come by. And the truth was, and on my side, there was different reasons that they had done several delay tactics. But in your situation too, and with the Skamania report, yeah, I believe that the detective reached out to them at the end of June, and it wasn't until the end of August so almost 3 months, no, 2 months, about 2 months, where they were just no show, and they were giving him the runaround, and they were, and from the documents that I've seen, and I'll probably be doing a whole show on this, that it looked like more of the county was doing this, and potentially in coordination with the county manager and the lawyers. But still, I think that it's not a good look. When you're not willing to talk to law enforcement, I know that's your right. You cannot do that. But when an attorney is being paid for you, a Seattle Sharks are being funded, and you have those as an opportunity, there's no reason besides maybe a few other reasons why you should sit down and talk with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Why would
crazy.
that be?
So moving on. So we had that's still going. You've got the case that's evolving. I mean, really, to be honest with you. Oh, and then we had Charlie Kirk assassination and the resolution, and you brought forward a resolution to honor that, to obviously condemn all political violence, including Charlie Kirk's assassination. And it was wild to see people just kind of balk at that. I mean, in fact, all the county councilors balked at that. They kind of like hesitated, and they're like, well, maybe we should add school shootings, which are, I mean, it was just kind
related.
of odd behavior.
Yeah. They weren't related at all. And then they mentioned a Democrat senator also, and threw that into the mix. It was almost like they were trying to take any and all shootings that were not even related and put it all into the resolution. And one thing that struck me was we had a constituent show up, and she made a comment that really stood out to me. And she said, she cited a study about electeds and how often they are threatened, and basically like they expect it to be a part, it's an everyday part of their job. And I told her, and not directly because we don't respond directly when people come and they talk to us during county council, but I said, it is not an everyday part of our job to get assassinated. That is not, murder is not acceptable. Assassination is not acceptable. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're not talking about threats, which, you know what? No one should threaten anyone, even if we have a difference of opinion in politics. And I do with my counselors. Right. For the most part, I would say almost always, I am respectful to all of them, regardless of my political opinion.
Right.
The feeling is not mutual. Obviously, I was removed from CTRAN.
Yeah.
So, I was setting precedents that it is not acceptable to assassinate or have any type of political violence occur at all.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild how the the hesitations that we saw in that of, well, but, and they try to add some kind of thing. Oh, well, I'm not justifying, but, and that's real dangerous. That's slippery. And I would think that no matter if I was on the other side and looking, I just, one of the things that Charlie Kirk, talked about and stood for was, we need to have honest debate. And if we stop talking with each other, and if it does, come down to violence, then we're in trouble. The reality is that we're, the Democrat Party has been taken over by the Socialist Party, DSA, and Marxism is at the center of that, and they do believe in violence. They do. I mean, it's just a matter of fact that Marx, Mao, people even today that believe that Mao said that all political power comes at the end of a gun, the barrel of a gun, and so not to say that all have fully adopted that, but they're adopting parts of that which justify violence or justify that kind of behavior. So it was good to see. It was surprising. Sue Marshall did spin around on that one. I don't know if she just decided this wasn't a hill that she wanted to die on, but she did support. The resolution was passed. Thank you for that. And for being outnumbered, I just got to say, you actually got quite a bit accomplished. I mean,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One against four a lot of times, and there was. I mean, obviously, you're not going to win every battle. You're not going to win a lot of battles, but I was surprised at what you were able to either bring attention to, and say, hey, this isn't good, kind of thing, or even like in the Charlie Kirk resolution situation, which is important. Again, doesn't matter which side you're on. That's an important kind of thing. So from there, then we moved into December. We haven't even gotten into 26 yet.
Nope.
I know. And so 25, shocking, right?
Yeah, it's
so
been a week.
Yeah. So 2025, the December budget, that was the big thing, which was pretty wild, that every levy, property, park, road, conservation, every chance. It was almost like hungry people at a taxpayer buffet, and it was like, oh, that looks good. That looks good. And have you seen it? Where you're at a buffet,
Yes.
and someone's got a plate, and it's just all piled high.
Yeah.
That's what happened in December. It's funny, but it's
They were like Cartman.
but it's but it wasn't funny because we're having to pay for it. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, then 2026 rolls around just this week. This whole, and to me, it kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe the holidays, I was still in a stupor or something like that. But all of a sudden, this affordable housing sales tax hits the table. Even and they passed it, so it's 4-1 vote, right? And tell me, Michelle, what's the earmark? What's the pressing need that was presented to the county to say we need this $6.5 million? What was it?
Well, if you look at the legislative package, there is no definition on what the standards were. I asked many questions about this week. I said, how is this going to be managed? What are the restrictions, or what definitizes how we use this money? We don't know. But we need to meet the deadline of Olympia,
Right,
so that we can get this, so we can get this passed through and we can start collecting this money. And I said
that was the priority.
Yeah.
So there
It's just the
wasn't
deadline.
there wasn't like, hey, we got this project here that can definitively help us reduce homelessness, or hey, this service that we know that is going to help Clark County. Nothing.
nothing, none of that. They couldn't answer any of my questions. So I'm just like, I said, this is the cart before the horse. And I also mentioned one of the other counselors, we have to have affordable housing. We're in a crisis. Well, by applying another sales tax, you're creating more of an affordable home, affordable living crisis.
Yeah, they raised the taxes on houses
Yeah.
in order to make affordable housing.
How is that helpful? And, here in Clark County, we have a sales tax leakage with Portland. A lot of people, even admittedly me, I shop over in Portland to save sales tax on.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically. People do it around here. It's no secret.
I've heard that.
Yeah. But I immediately thought, wow, you all should just pat yourselves on the back. Because Portland is screaming, hooray, right now. Because who wants to pay more sales tax? No one.
Right.
So that's going to basically create another excuse for Clark County residents to continue to go across the bridge
Yeah.
and spend their salaries there versus in our county. And, that is going to affect the Clark County budget. It's gonna affect us because that's how we collect a lot of, that's what keeps Clark County running is sales tax.
Well, and it shows the hypocrisy because I don't know if you've seen the signs, you probably have, where the Democrats, this is the only thing they did in the last election cycle, is they put up these goofy affordable housing signs. And really all you had was some, school board positions, couple city positions and charter positions and affordable housing. I mean, it was kind of a bizarre, like I was really surprised that they chose this, but and then they do this kind of thing. They do what they did in December, raise taxes on all these situations, and then come in January. You would think maybe they felt a little bad for what they did in December. No. Maybe their New Year's resolution was, hey, maybe we shouldn't raise more taxes on people to make it actually live out this affordability pledge. Nope. They came in on January, and the first thing they did, it was the first council meeting of the year, because it turns out the taxpayer cash drawer was closing, and they're like, oh, we got to get our hand in that before it closes. So let's pass this. We don't have a plan. We don't know why we need it, but $6.5 million, let's grab it.
Yep. And
they loaded it up in that buffet table, and they had to use a wagon to kind of bring their plate back. But and I think, and maybe you could speak to this, I think we're going to see more of this. Like, I don't think it's going to end. They're going to continue to figure out every nickel and dime, every tax to raise, every fee, everything.
Yeah, and a lot of these bills are coming from the last session in Olympia. So the Democrats in Olympia are creating bills or something, like some type of mechanism for not only at the state level to raise taxes, but also for the counties to take the tools that they've created to go back and claw back more taxes from us. I mean, the way things are going, it's not a good way to go, and they are going to drive people out of Washington. I recently just saw an article saying that outbound migration of Washingtonians is starting to pick up because people are onto this. And we can only take so many taxes, and when taxes when they can't even be explained or defined, that is not acceptable.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah, and it really shows the hypocrisy, again, of the affordability platform that the Democrats are trying so desperately to pivot to. And it's not working, because this is classic, where behind the scenes, when no one's looking, no one's paying attention, everyone's at work, they're going to raise taxes, they're going to create policy that makes it less affordable, and then they're going to be in a situation where it's like, hey, we're all about it, but they're not. And so it's tough. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for that. So as we kind of wrap up, you might have some breaking news. What's going on for 2026 for you?
I do. So this is the end of my term, the last year of my term, and I have decided to run for District 2 again. For those who are unfamiliar with my district, it's Salmon Creek, Philida, Hazeldale, Minnehaha, and out to Five Corners and Orchards.
Yeah. Wow. So you're running?
I am.
And it's going to be pretty exciting.
It is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. I love campaigning.
Yeah, you kind of have.
Not everybody does, but I do.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, because it's so that's exciting. Thanks for sharing with that. Well, we better wrap it up. I think this is the first ReformCast episode you've survived. I've survived, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.